when I had eclampsia. Eclampsia is high blood pressure during pregnancy or postpartum. I had postpartum eclampsia. I wrote about it in my book, but majorly it's the act of what helped me to begin to lose weight and begin to get back into my body again. So let me give you a brief example or brief information about eclampsia. Eclampsia, when it happens, I don't know if you guys have seen Aproko doctor's video on the blind. There's a woman that had blindness after she had a baby, and this is not to scare any young lady here. It's just to share with you my own experience and the weight of what we're doing. So if you had watched Aproko doctor's video, you would have seen that, and when he was talking about what the lady that gave birth and lost her sight, and that was as a result of eclampsia. What happens is, he said the thing is temporary, it can be temporary, and that's what happens when women have eclampsia. That's high blood pressure. So people talk a lot about pre-eclampsia. Pre-eclampsia is before eclampsia. It is before the high blood pressure kicks in, right? The woman is, once she's pregnant, the doctor checks her blood pressure to ensure that she is, safe and the baby safe. So they have to watch a lot of these women to make sure that the pregnancy is not harmful and the process is smooth, at least to just monitor the mom and the baby. So for me, I didn't have pre-eclampsia. Like my blood pressure, in fact, I used to have low blood pressure. I never really had high blood pressure issues. Never had been an issue in my family history. I used to have low blood pressure. I had hypotension, not even hypertension. So most times I used to have dizzy spells and all of that. So I didn't even know that it wasn't a problem, a condition. I never had a pre-eclampsia before. So this was my second pregnancy with my son. And so I'd already given birth to him. This was in 2015. I gave birth to my second son. The pregnancy was cool. Even though I was eating unhealthy during the pregnancy, I gained so much weight. But after 2 weeks, I started having terrible headaches and swollen feet. So my swollen feet and terrible headache, I went to the hospital. Like, what's going on? I thought it was maybe stress from the pregnancy. I'm sharing this story before people that are new to the team or new to my story or never really heard the story before. But some of us have already know the story because they've followed me for almost 10 years. So I drove to the hospital with a headache, and those are the symptoms of eclampsia, pre-eclampsia, or high blood pressure headaches. And for women who have just given birth, or women that are pregnant, swollen feet, those are the symptoms to watch out for. So I had those. I didn't have that during the pregnancy. I had it after. So that's why mine was postpartum. So it was postpartum because my feet were swollen and my head was aching and all of that. And that's how I drove to the hospital, and they told me that I had high blood pressure. So the pressure that was on my head was giving me the terrible headache. So for the first time in my life, I saw that my blood pressure had increased to 180/100. I think it was about 180. It was really high. It was 180/100. Then we just they gave me ice packs to try to calm me down and all of that. Then I was still in Nigeria. We were in a Chevron clinic on the island. We lived on the island close to VGC. So I drove into the VGC clinic, and they were monitoring me. So I had ice packs on my head trying to calm me down, but it wasn't working. So they had to rush me in the ambulance. Just imagine, picture traffic rush hour, rushing me in the ambulance, trying to take me to the ICU. The ICU version of the clinic was on the mainland. So moving me from the island to the mainland during rush hour was crazy. I was scared, and I was just I was really restless inside the ambulance. That was my first time ever in an ambulance, and I really thought I was going to die. I saw death in the face. I stared death in the face, and that period was really, really trying and scary for me. So I was just trying to what I was thinking. So I finally got to the ICU on the mainland, and that's where the whole this thing went. When I was trying to build. Thank you. They were trying to crash the blood pressure so that it would go down. So by the time the ambulance got to the ICU, blood pressure had even increased. That's gone to 200, 110. That shot through the roof. Like anything literally could happen. I could have been like that woman that Aproko doctor showed in his video that's lost her eyesight. Because it's in the brain. The pressure, when you hear the video, when he was explaining it, the pressure can rupture anything. So if it ruptures the vein where that's giving you eyesight, the person can go blind. So the thing is that the pressure so it's just like a swelling. So the brain, and if it affects the eye, person goes blind. If it affects the movement or the spine, the person can be numb on one leg, or they have paralyzed on one side of their body. So anything can happen from that brain that is swollen. So if it ruptures, the person can go. That's how scary it is. So we hear people's stories that they lost their hearing, they lost their sight, they lost their ability to walk. That's what happened. And so while they were trying to reduce my blood pressure, because at the time I got to the hospital, anything could have happened. So when they were trying to reduce my blood pressure, I started checking on the table. So at that point, anything could have happened. I could have gone into coma. I could have gone from there. I could have lost my sight. I could have done anything could have happened to the body. And so when I got back, when my body finally calmed down after checking on the table, then doctors were like, "Here, literally a walking miracle." So this is me sharing my story about how I almost died from eclampsia. So when I share with you guys why we are doing this project, this vision, or why we're starting with what we're starting with, the walking, worship and warfare lifestyle change, I'm doing it for the woman that needed that's 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So what helped me to rebuild my strength was simple 10 minutes walk. Simple 10 minutes walk. So when you see me share these things, or when we're doing these things together, this is the reason, this is the story behind it. So I want you to my goal, my desire for us is to carry this vision like your own and be the voice to promote, and so that we can get these women. There are women that are out there that have given up on being the best version of themselves. They feel like, oh, I can't work out, because the fitness industry, the fitness space, does not see them, does not welcome them, does not include them. So this is the reason why we're doing what we're doing. So when you hear me do things, when you hear me talk about the language that we use, the voice that we are meant to use, this is the reason. Okay, so this is not just a wellness brand, this is a restoration moment. We are guiding women from burnout to balance, from survival to intentional living, from disconnection to divine alignment. So the Create Your Eating we are doing here is not just a place, it's not just an app, it is a way of living, it's a lifestyle. And we're trying to encourage moms, women who feel like they don't have any hope. I know how that woman felt like. I know who that woman looked like, because I was that woman. That woman that needed 10 minutes to just get her body again. By the time I got back home after the whole eclampsia experience, my body was not the same. I felt like my body was scattered. I had to like bring the pieces together. So when you say somebody went outside to walk for 10 minutes, I know how it feels to walk with your scattered body for 10 minutes and you kept showing up. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, before you know, your body begins to come together. And you can now do from 10 minutes, you can now do 20, 30. Then you can now even go and work out in the gym. So we're taking that woman through that journey.